All right, in this video, I'm going to go through the last three problems of note sheet number 10 for hyperbolas. These are going to give you some critical pieces of information that you are going to then have to figure out all of the rest of the information. So you know we're going to need the center, you know we're going to need our A value and our B value, and we're going to need to know which way or which direction these hyperbolas are opening. So I always recommend start by reading the problem, right? It's always a good idea. And as you're reading, you might want to maybe sketch what's happening here. So problem number 6, I have foci at 8, 0, and negative 8, 0. Now those are the two focal points. Here's what I now know. I know two things. I know my center is 0, 0. Actually, I know multiple things more than even just two. I also now know my C value, that's going to be from the center to a focus point, is 8 units. So C is equal to 8. I know that this is going to be opening left and right, which means that it's going to be x squared first minus y squared is equal to 1. And what I need to figure out is what is going to fill in these two denominators, okay? So I am going to have to figure out this transverse axis right here, and separately, I'm going to have to figure out something about my conjugate axis. Now, conveniently, the conjugate axis is actually given to you, all right? It says specifically the conjugate axis has length of 6 units. Here's what we got to be careful about. The full conjugate axis is from endpoint to endpoint. Your B value, because that's what this is going to be, is your B value, is only from the center to an edge. So make sure you pay attention to what's given to you. Because it says the conjugate axis has length of 6 units, I actually want to tell myself that B is equal to 3. All right, it is 3 units tall here. So be careful with that. All right, now using my B value and my C value, I can figure out my A value. So C squared is equal to A squared plus B squared. So C is 8, so that's going to be 64, is equal to A squared plus 3 squared is 9. So I'm going to subtract 9 from both sides. And I'm feeling like that's 55. But I want to make sure it is. All right, so this is going to be 55 is equal to A squared. Now, because I don't actually have to graph or identify where my vertices are, I actually don't need to know what A is. I'm quite happy to know what A squared is. So my transverse axis is the A value here, or the A squared for the equation. So that's going to be 55. My conjugate axis, be careful that you're not using the 6. It's going to be 3. And then to square it, to get the denominator here, it's going to be 9. So there is our nifty little equation. And it is perfectly acceptable to leave it in standard form. In fact, I would encourage you to. There's no reason to put this in general form for these problems. Okay, problem number 7. Find the equation of the hyperbola with vertices. All right, so let's go ahead and mark those. 0, 3, and 0, negative 3. Okay, so a couple things I know. I know my center is going to be 0, 0. I know that's for the vertices, so my A value is going to be 3. That's from the, try that again. That's going to be from the center to a vertex, so that's the A value. And it says the conjugate axis length is 4 units. So that tells me my B value is actually 2. Remember, we're going to cut it in half to get our actual B value. And so here's the fun part. I actually don't care what C is. I don't need C to write the equation. I need a center. I have the center. I need to know my A value. I know it. And I need to know my B value. I know that too. One thing to pay attention to with this particular problem, because your vertices are on the y-axis here, we're going to have a graph that opens up and down, which means this is going to be y squared first. All right, so y squared over, your a value is 3, square it to make the denominator, minus x squared over b value is 2. I'm going to square that to make 4, and that's my denominator there, is equal to 1. So there's nothing in this problem that says you have to know anything about where the foci are. So if you don't need them, don't find them. All right, last problem on the page. Problem number 8. Find the equation of the hyperbola with foci at 0, 3, and 0, negative 3. So that's actually the same information that we were given in this problem, the last problem. The difference is this was vertices, this is now foci. And transverse axis length of 4 units. Okay. So I'm always going to graph it first. So 0, 3, and 0, negative 3. So my center is going to be at 0, 0. And because these are the foci, I know that my curve is going to curve around them. Okay, something like this. And I'm given that the transverse axis length is 4 units. So I know A is equal to 2, right? Because we're going to cut that transverse axis in half. So from the center to here is 2 units. And I know my focal distance is 3. Now in this case, I do actually need to know what B is, so I am going to use that equation. So C squared is equal to A squared plus B squared. And this will let me solve for B squared. So let's see. C squared is going to be 9. A squared is 4 plus B squared. So B squared is equal to 5. Okay, looks good. Because this graph opens up and down, we're going to start with, of course, y squared over our a value in this case is 2. So I'm going to square that, get 4. Whoops, it's not plus. Yeah, if you put plus, then you're writing an ellipse, and that's clearly not what we have here when it says write the equation of a hyperbola. Then I want x squared over, I know b squared is 5. That's equal to 1. All right, so that concludes this particular note sheet about hyperbolas. If you have any questions or concerns about these word problems,